CBC Newsworld. Trusted, connected, Canadian.
Gold mining stocks surged to a 2-year high, and the Enron scandal raises fears of further bankruptcies. You're watching Newsworld Business News. Hello and welcome to Newsworld Business News. I'm Fred Langan. The collapse of energy trading giant Enron continues to plague markets, prompting shareholders to dig deeper into the accounting at a variety of companies. The digging continues at Enron as well. Shareholders, employees, and politicians are all looking for answers, and Enron's former chairman may be forced to take the hot seat. A U.S. Senate committee voted unanimously today to subpoena Kenneth Lay, who refused to appear voluntarily to answer questions about the collapse of the energy trading company. Natalie Clancy reports.
Thank you.
Deborah Parada is one of thousands of Enron employees who watched her retirement savings evaporate with the collapse of the Houston-based energy trader.
Herein lies many lessons for the American workers, and I'm sorry, I'm an example.
She told the Senate committee she lost about $40,000. While one Senate committee listened to victims of the scandal, another voted unanimously to force Enron's former boss to do what he refused to do willingly. Kenneth Lay will be subpoenaed, but he could invoke his constitutional right not to answer questions about the tangled web of partnerships that allowed Enron to hide its huge debt.
Mr. Lay unloaded millions of dollars of stock.
Only way to get to the bottom of this disaster is to hear from Enron's captain.
Meanwhile, a House committee heard damning testimony of what Ken Lay's role might have been from this man, the author of an internal Enron report that points directly at senior management.
Well, it's absolutely true that Mr. Lay fully understood that they were using their own stock to offset these losses.
Investigating the biggest bankruptcy in U.S. history has put congressional leaders on Capitol Hill in a sour mood. The chief executive at Enron's accounting firm got no extra credit for appearing before a House Financial Services Committee.
You don't think you have a responsibility to blow the whistle? I mean, your ship is going to go down and you're going to be lashed to the mast unless you start talking to us about what happened.
Information that was relevant was withheld. Who knew it? Who withheld it? We don't have that information.
This afternoon, President Bush brushed off a demand to appoint a special prosecutor in the case, saying his justice officials can handle it. At least the Justice Department can lay charges. There are no less than 11 Senate and House committees now investigating Enron, and ultimately all they can do is rewrite laws so what happened to Enron doesn't happen again. Natalie Clancy, CBC News, Washington.
On the markets, it was another weak day across the board. The TSE 300 index losing 67 points. Nortel dropping below $10 for the first time since November 2nd. The Dow off just a fraction. General Electric reaffirming its expectations for profit growth of 17 to 18% this year. GE shares up 3.5%. Finally, the NASDAQ down 17 points. Late word out of Washington that the economic stimulus bill is almost certain to die. Watch the markets tomorrow for reaction. It was a weak year for Algoma. The steelmaker, which is restructuring after emerging from bankruptcy protection at the end of January, says it lost $392 million in 2001. In the fourth quarter alone, it lost $7.31 a share. But Canada's third largest steelmaker says it believes better days are ahead, as it expects the price of steel to increase. The CEO of California-based Adobe Systems is in Canada, boasting about his latest acquisition. Adobe, a world leader in graphics software, has agreed to purchase Ottawa-based Excelio, maker of electronic business forms, for $114 million. Chris Goldrick reports.
Kevin Francis calls the $114 million Canadian purchase of his company by Adobe Systems of California a smart business move.
We share global reach. We have a similar view around concentrating on large Global 2000 organizations for this initiative, and Bruce Chisholm, the CEO of Adobe, and myself both are excited that this represents tremendous value in the marketplace for our customers and certainly for our shareholders.
Last December, Excelio received a $68.5 million Canadian hostile takeover bid from OpenText Corp of Waterloo, Ontario. Acelio executives called the offer insulting. Then, late last week, Adobe stepped forward with its offer, an offer worth about $43 million Canadian more than OpenText's hostile bid. The Adobe offer is expected to be accepted by shareholders April 9th. Adobe, with thousands of employees worldwide, admits there will be job losses, but instead of the 200 jobs originally slated to be cut from Acelio staff, Adobe is now saying the job losses will be less severe.
We have about 90 positions opened at Adobe today, so we hope that even if we eliminate an Acelio employee's position today, that they'll find another opportunity at Adobe.
The news that Adobe plans to keep most Acelio employees doesn't surprise industry watchers.
Adobe has this kind of diversified business structure they call nodes. They like to spread their operations around in different places so they can take advantage of local talent and diversify their labor force.
Adobe plans to use its new Ottawa operation as a research and development center, but one man who will definitely not be part of it is current Acelio president Kevin Francis. After supervising the integration, Francis plans to leave after securing what he's calling a good deal for employees and shareholders. Chris Goldrick, CBC News, Ottawa.
Turning to some notable stocks in Canada and more signs of a weak economy, TD Bank raised its loan loss provision to $1.1 billion for the year. The bank blames losses in Argentina and bad loans to communications companies. But TD maintains it still expects to meet earnings targets for the year. Shares in TD were off 1%. Manulife Financial reporting its 8th consecutive year of higher profits. Looking at the fourth quarter, the company earned 69 cents a share versus 59 last year. At profits down at Inco, the nickel miner losing 7 cents a share in its latest quarter compared to a profit of 39 cents in the fourth quarter last year. Its share price also slipping, down 32 cents today. Economic and political troubles have prompted Kinross Gold to write down about $12 million of mining assets in the African country of Zimbabwe. Its mine there is expected to produce 39,000 ounces of gold this year. Research in Motion has resolved its legal differences with rival Glenair Electronics. The two companies had filed patent infringement suits against each other. They will now work together on a single device that integrates voicemail, email, fax, and text messaging. RIM shares down 1 1/3%. It's RRSP season in Canada. Many Canadians buy labor-sponsored capital funds. These invest in small startup companies and may come with an extra 30% tax break. But one financial advisor warns these are high-risk investments.
One of the things you have to remember is that the government does not give tax incentives just because they want to be nice to us. They give tax incentives because these are extremely high-risk investments, and there's a substantial chance that you could lose a significant portion of your investment capital, if not all of it.
And joining us from our Halifax studio to talk about today's trading is Serge Pepin, Director of Investment Services for Maritime Life.
Good evening, Fred.
Hi, Serge. Well, we were talking about the price of gold. It's up just at almost $300 an ounce. Are you buying gold stocks in your funds?
Well, actually, we never really shun gold stocks. We don't really care for gold as far as the commodity is concerned. Hovering right now around the $300 mark, like you just said. If anything, people are seeing that commodity as sort of a safe haven, and still have quite a bit of turmoil in the equity market at this point. So investors are sort of trying to turn to something where they can perhaps make money on at this point. And we saw that periodically in 2001. But definitely in the sector itself, there are some names that we like. Placer Dome, Barrick, Kinross are definitely companies that we like and that we hold in portfolios.
Would you overweight your portfolio with gold at this time?
No, not at all. The sector, we would never really overweight the sector. We're not big sector players, first of all, so we tend not to overweight that type of sector. But definitely, you do want to be in that sector, especially in companies that you like, where they're either their hedging strategies or you like their focus and management style and so on. So depending on the fundamentals of the company, you do want to own them. But as far as the commodity itself, no, it's not a big player for us.
Now, the Houston Astros want to take Enron off their stadium. I mean, this whole Enron saga continues to expand in many directions.
Exactly.
What's it doing to investor sentiment?
Well, you know, that's the big problem at this point in time. Enron is like a big hangover, if anything, and it's really hurting sentiment for investors. If anything, it's now turning investors very suspicious of company earnings and reports and so on. Even today, I mean, for the past couple of days now, we've heard companies sort of coming out with news that they'll have to restate earnings, perhaps going back to 1999, 1998. I believe one in case in point was Pencil Quaker State, and that's a big shock to investors. They don't want to hear that. I mean, we've just come off a very difficult year in 2001, going to 2002 now. We were sort of optimistic that markets would turn around, and definitely this Enron thing that is not helping.
Even General Electric reported, but it wasn't enough to get the Dow up.
No, exactly. But General Electric was very quick today to come out and saying, you know, like we're quite optimistic that the numbers that we're coming out with will be the true numbers. And but that's the one thing that we're looking at right now is the numbers that companies are coming out with.
Now, Nortel was down another 5% today. Do you think it's a buy?
Well, Nortel for us, I mean, we're still holding Nortel in a number of portfolios. We still like it just because of its leadership in the particular market that it's in. However, I mean, you're looking at a sector, especially that the telecom wireless sector, that's very saturated at this point. And Ciena in the U.S. came out with a profit warning, and that sort of its warning or its announcement sort of really pulled those types of stocks down. So you had Network down, Nortel down, you had Juniper down as well. So and Lucent Technologies as well. But as a stock itself, as a company, we like it. It's still suffering from some credibility problem, if anything, but we like the market leadership.
Quickly, Serge, name me 2 or 3 other stocks that you like in your portfolio.
Well, actually, the manufacturing sector is one that we like at this point. We still like the banks. So Bank of Montreal and TD are banks that we still want to own. In consumer products, we still like the merchandising, I should say. We like Hudson Bay. We think that with its component Zellers, that they'll be able to sort of show a turnaround, especially when the economic recovery takes hold.
Okay, thanks a lot for coming in. Nice to see you again.
Always a pleasure, sir.
Another Enron-related development, there are reports that consulting firm Deloitte & Touche will announce it is restructuring its business to separate the accounting from the consulting side. We'll keep you posted. And when we return, we'll speak with gold analyst Barry Allen for his comments on the recent surge in the price of gold and gold stocks. Back in 2 minutes.
Watching your finances flourish. Dreams becoming reality. That's why we believe.
Time out. It's time a bank took a hard look at reality and realized there is more to life than banking. Time to start offering smart, simple products and services. It's time to take steps toward a smarter and simpler way to bank. CIBC. It's time.
The 255 horsepower Nissan Maxima.
Good news, Dave. Your business loan's been approved.
Excuse me? So, I got the loan.
Yes.
Sorry about that.
Happens all the time.
Introducing Scotia One Loan Source for Business. A better way of lending and a much better chance of getting a loan for your small business.
Welcome back to Newsworld Business News. Gold hit a one-year high today, climbing almost $10 U.S. to close just under $300 an ounce. And many gold stocks reached new highs in trading on the TSE, lifting the precious metals sub-index over 4% on the day. Joining me in studio to talk about the reasons why investors are enthusiastic about gold, Barry Allen, a precious metals analyst with Research Capital. Well, the price of gold seems to have surprised everyone. Where can it go from here?
Well, the circumstances clearly are that there still are more positives in the market than negatives. And I think it's quite clear to see that over the short term, we can expect higher gold prices well into probably the low $300.
Were you shocked when you saw gold get this high this fast?
This fast, yes. We certainly didn't. We did expect gold price to appreciate up to the $300 level, but by the year 2003. So the events that have happened in the past short while are much faster than anyone really predicted. The real sharp movement in gold price, historically over the past number of years, we've only had muted movements in gold price.
I guess the central banks, every time it gets up to anywhere near $300, they whack it by selling into the market. Why isn't that happening this time?
It's all about low interest rates. The cost of holding bullion itself is very low, so there's no real incentive to sell. And secondarily, for gold producers who have helped the central banks monetize their bullion, there's no incentive to sell forward. So as a result...
What does that mean, sell forward?
It means we contract today to sell gold 1 year forward. And in executing that trade, what you effectively do is take the gold you would have produced a year forward and sell it today. So you sell more gold than you physically have, and that suppresses the price.
And that's not happening now.
It's not happening. There's no incentive for producers to do it. In fact, there's more incentive for producers to close their hedge books, which would be a support to the price.
Now, there's usually a strong relation between the U.S. dollar and gold. Explain that and explain why it isn't happening now.
Well, you're quite right. A dominant relationship over a good number of years, but in the last 6 months, it's become uncoupled. In other words, U.S. dollars going up, the gold price is moving up with it. And part of that, I think, has to do with the low interest rate, but also there is an increased incentive for people to hold gold as a hedge against currency devaluation, particularly over the past short while. So we've had this movement of gold with the U.S. dollar, which is quite unusual.
Now, you work for a company that is a brokerage house. What are you telling your clients in terms of should they buy gold stocks, and what gold stocks should they buy?
Well, we still are staying with the gold sector. We have recognized it's moved fairly hard in a short period of time, but we have seen nothing yet to suggest we should back away from the gold sector. We're changing the type of companies that we're recommending. We're moving more to the juniors and the senior companies. It's been the mid-tier companies that have really performed the best. So we're looking for a little better value.
Give me some big companies that you like and give me some small companies.
Barrick Gold, you know, it is really the index in the gold sector, and it has lagged the performance of the mid-tiers quite significantly. And we think a broader base acceptance of gold as an investment will translate into movement in Barrick, but also companies like Glamis Gold, IM Gold, Repadre, smaller cap companies, which arguably are still undervalued, will benefit as well.
Now, what does Japan have to do with the price of gold?
Well, as you probably are aware, Japan is going through a bit of their own crisis, and really as gold as a hedge against currency devaluation, swapping yen for gold. If you've already long U.S. dollars, what else would you hedge into? Gold is the most likely vehicle, particularly given the low interest rates that we have.
So the Japanese are trying to preserve their wealth by buying gold. This in turn is raising the gold price.
Exactly. That's one of the ingredients.
Okay. Do you expect that to continue?
As long as the Japan market has the risk of devaluation, absolutely. And it's just not Japan. There are other countries as well where it makes sense that perhaps currency hedging is a good idea.
Okay, thanks a lot for coming in.
My pleasure.
A update on the situation in Argentina. Protests continued on the second day of a government-declared bank holiday. All banks in the country have been closed for cash withdrawals and for currency exchanges. Experts expect huge runs on the banks tomorrow as people rush to withdraw pesos and exchange them for dollars. Still ahead on Newsworld Business News. Is it a sign of better times ahead? A Vancouver technology company gets set to go public. That story after the break.
Genetic modification, designer babies, cloning, stem cell research. When does life begin, and when should the research end? Playing God or playing with fire? Perspective is everything. Delivered daily in the Globe and Mail.
It's time you got credit card services like great seats to the shows you've always wanted to see. Front-of-the-line entertainment benefits. Just one of the many advantages of having the new CIBC Entourage credit card, bringing you the accessibility of CIBC with the global reach of American Express. CIBC. It's time.
Nobody knows where the dream begins. A tiny spark that becomes a flame, that becomes a fire, that turns into gold. And when that dream comes true, the true champion begins all over again.
Hi, I'm Katrina LeMay-Doan, and thanks to sponsors like Daimler Chrysler Canada, I'm living the Olympic dream all over again.
Daimler Chrysler Canada and its retailers, proud to support Canada's best.
AT&T Canada Data and IP Networks use technology that speeds data around the world instantly to keep your employees in the loop. And multiple layers of security to keep everyone else out. On guard.
Vancouver-based Radiant Communications is making a bold move in a difficult market. The internet services company is planning to go public in April. Radiant has just raised $3 million privately as part of its plan to shore up its business before its IPO. Belle Puri has the story.
You don't have the ADSL service at the moment? Or?
Web hosting, web development, high-speed access, internet services for business.
Are you in the Vancouver area?
That's Radiant Communications.
We don't specialize in residential at all, so we're strictly focused on the business marketplace, which is pretty unique from our perspective.
That's also one reason Radiant has been able to buck the prevailing trend and grow, while many in the high-tech sector struggle. Another reason is money.
In our case, we're not a capital-intensive business. We've taken quite a different approach. We tend to partner with Bell, with TELUS, some of the other telcos, in terms of the infrastructure side of things.
Now Radiant's about to take another different approach. In April, it's going public, a bold move in tough times, but it's raising the money it needs beforehand, privately.
If you can find money in the private equity markets or the public equity markets today, get it, grab it, because it is still a very, very much a market driven by the suppliers.
Private money makes the public process a bit less risky.
If we're going the IPO route, there's just a lot of uncertainty. You know, will we raise our money? Will, you know, is there an appetite at a certain price? When can you actually make it happen? There's a lot more variables, I guess.
I think we're into this, and you know.
Venture capitalists like Brent Holliday say the jury is still out on whether the public is ready to start investing in high-tech again. But Radiant's move is a hopeful sign.
The fact that they can do this and that their investment banker Canaccord believes that they can, you know, raise some money in this market, that's a fairly good indication that maybe things are starting to get a little bit better.
Radiant is counting on things getting a lot better. It's raised $3 million so far and needs another $2 before it becomes the newest company on the CDNX. Belle Puri, CBC News, Vancouver.
Finance Minister Paul Martin repeated today that any budget surplus this year will go towards paying down Canada's debt. The federal debt stands at $535 billion. That's more than $17,000 a person, and does not take into account money owed by provincial or municipal governments. And because of the slowing economy, the Ministry of Finance says there is no guarantee there will be a surplus in the coming years. Not much action for the Canadian dollar today. The loonie lost a couple of points, ending at 62.61 cents U.S. Bond markets were also quiet, with Canada's long bond adding 5 cents and the American 30-year up about the same. The war on terrorism is good news for dog breeders. Well, certain dog breeders. There's a huge demand for sniffer dogs, according to the Wall Street Journal. They're needed not just at airports, but at nuclear power plants and military bases. How big is the demand? Well, before September 11th, the well-trained German Shepherd would sell for $2,500 U.S. Now, the same animal can fetch as much as $20,000 U.S. Favorite dogs are German and Belgian Shepherds, as well as Labrador and Golden Retrievers. There's even been a switch to the Border Collie, whose nose isn't so good, but whose big brain makes it easy to train. And that's our Tuesday edition of Newsworld Business News. I'm Fred Langen. I'll be back at the same time tomorrow. Stay tuned now for the latest news on CBC Newsworld.